Today on CityCast Houston, new crime data is out, and we're going to answer a pressing question on everybody's mind. Is Houston safe? Houston Public Media's digital reporter Adam Zuvanich joins me to not only answer that question, but also put the new numbers in perspective compared to other years. It's Monday, April 29th. I'm Raheel Ramzanali, and here's what Houston's talking about. Adam, welcome into CityCast Houston. How are you?
Good. Very good. Thank you for having me.
Hey, absolutely. Before we jump into the conversation, anytime I have somebody on from Houston Public Media, I have to ask, what is your favorite show on either PBS or News 88.7?
Whew, man, that's a good one. I've always been a fan. This is going to be a really cliche. I love The Joy of Painting by Bob Ross.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's something I grew up with. It's still on. I can tell you what it comes on at 10:30 p.m. during the week. If I haven't fallen asleep, I'm usually watching it. So that's, I've always loved that one.
It's an absolute constant, right? Like it's always there for us.
And it's so relaxing. Like, you watch it and it's just like, no matter what mood you're in, it just has like a calming effect. You know what I mean?
It really does. It really does. That's such a good choice right there. Let's talk about crime. Okay. This is something that's always been top of mind for Houstonians and has been as of late as well, a little bit more pressing, right? So is Houston safer right now than, let's say, last year?
According to the Uniform Crime Reporting System, law enforcement agencies all across the state, we're talking at the municipal level, the county level, even school districts that have police departments, are all required to send their stuff to the Texas Department of Public Safety. There's an online portal that anyone can look at. And according to those numbers, if you compare year-over-year crime stats for the first quarter of the year, January through March, the stats that HPD, the Houston Police Department, sent to DPS show that crime is way down year over year.
So when will HPD release their official numbers? Because again, this reporting was based on the DPS numbers. When do the HPD reports come out?
There's not a specific timeline on that. They have periodically, particularly like in the previous administration under Mayor Sylvester Turner. I think they did put them out every few months or at least twice a year. These numbers are unofficial. The department, they don't release this stuff directly to the public until after they've been kind of reviewed and confirmed and staff and leaders have had a chance to kind of vet everything. So this is kind of a snapshot, they said. But based on these numbers, it shows that crime is way down.
Really?
27% overall, and that's like total crime incidents. And we're talking about crimes against people, which include, assaults, homicides, kidnappings, sexual assaults, crimes against property, which are things like burglaries, fraud, embezzlement, vehicle theft, robberies, and crimes against society, which is like, drug offenses, gambling, pornography, animal cruelty, things like that.
Wow. So all of those categories are down right now. And overall crime, as you mentioned, is down in the city of Houston. When doing your research, and you wrote a great story on this, were there specific numbers that jumped out that you were like, whoa, this is shocking?
A little bit. I mean, it's across the board. I mean, if you look at this, there's probably about 20 specific categories of crime here. And based on these numbers, if you look at, first quarter of 2023 compared to first quarter of this year, the only category where there's an increase this year is bribery.
Wow.
4 bribery incidents compared to 2 through this time last year. Everything else is down. I mean, we're talking kidnapping and abduction is down by half, according to these numbers.
Why is that? Why do you think crime is down to start this year versus last year?
That's a great question. And there's lots of explanations. HPD is not offering one right now. I think it's part of their vetting process. But, it is part of, at least statewide trend. I also looked at the numbers for the other big cities in Texas, Dallas, El Paso, Austin, San Antonio. And you see the same thing. The numbers are down pretty much across the board. One of the biggest declines, looking at those other cities, was in Dallas. So you have the 2 biggest cities where they're showing decline. Now, why is this? Well, Of course, it could be because crime is actually down, but you have to consider other factors. I mean, these incident reports are generated when people call to report crimes. So if people aren't calling to report a crime, if HPD is not alerted to a crime or called out, for service, then there's probably not going to be a record of that.
Yeah.
And we could delve into the validity of the crime numbers. There have been fluctuations over the years. The new mayor, John Whitmire, has even come out and questioned the validity of crime stats for the past several years because of all these cases they found that were given a code to be suspended because of lack of personnel. So there's lots of potential explanations for why that could be. Again, it could be underreporting. Maybe it's a lack of resources that could be a factor within the department. I mean, those are potential explanations.
This is a good trend, right? And I don't know how it got there, but the numbers are saying that Houston is safer right now, at least in 2024. But how are these numbers doing compared to, let's say, pre-pandemic or even the last few years? Are we safer overall, or is this just like right now we're in a decline?
Well, I took a look at that, comparing first quarter of the year, first few months of the year for the last several years back to 2019. So if you look at it, you do see kind of a definite spike in, immediately post pandemic. 2020 through 2022, there were more than 400 homicides in Houston just each of those 3 years.
Wow.
That's kind of when there was a spike. And you see that the numbers are higher pretty much in all those years. But if you go back to 2019, before the pandemic, the numbers that we're seeing this year so far are more comparable to those numbers from 2019. In some cases, they're even down a little bit. Overall, the total number of incidents reported is down by over 10,000. That's first quarter 2024 compared to first quarter 2019. Homicides are about the same, 61 this year, the first 3 months compared to 63 in 2019.
Okay.
Human trafficking, this year's numbers are lower. Kidnapping, this year's numbers are higher. Sex-related offenses were much higher through this stage in 2019 than they are so far this year. Same with crimes against property, same with crimes against society. So the numbers say that, this year so far is looking even better than 2019. I did also went back and looked at the last quarter of last year, of 2023. You're also seeing declines there. So it would be fair to say that this trend did not necessarily emerge at the start of this year, but perhaps things were already trending downward last year. Last quarter of the year, in 2023, there were 70 homicides. Okay, 70 compared to 61. That's still lower than the 75 homicides that were committed in the first quarter of 2023. And there's a lot of talk, among politicians, about crime. We hear that a lot. You have to consider too just the nature of news these days and social media and the fact that we have access to everything right now. You kind of wonder, okay, is there more crime, or are we just hearing more about crime? Is that information more readily available? So those are questions we have to ask.
Adam, we see so many stories in the news about scams, right? Are those crimes up? Because it seems like they are, right?
Yeah, I mean, Fort Bend County, the sheriff's office recently announced that there was an ongoing scam that people were calling and claiming to be with the sheriff's office and saying, "Hey, you got to send us X amount of money, or to clear this warrant that's out for your arrest." And the sheriff's office came out and said, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! This is not us. We wouldn't do that. We wouldn't ask for money like that." So yeah, you do hear about these things. And granted, that's Fort Bend County. This is Houston. This is the numbers provided to DPS by the Houston Police Department. But according to these numbers, categories like counterfeiting and forgery, embezzlement, extortion and blackmail, fraud offenses, in Houston at least, according to these numbers, they're all down.
So when you look at a place like Bissnet, right? And I'm going to bring up one example. Bissnet wasn't the reason why crime numbers were high by any means, okay? But they've really done a good job of focusing on that street and clearing up the crime that is committed there. But when one of the reporters we talked to, she was investigating this, and talking to the community, they feel like that crime has just moved to other parts of the city or surrounding areas. Is it possible that these crimes are still happening, but they've just been displaced to other parts of the numbers and thus not being reported in the Houston Police Department numbers?
I didn't delve into the Harris County numbers
Mhm.
for this story I did. We kept it specific to Houston. But yeah, that's very possible. I mean, Houston's a big area, and the Houston Police Department only has jurisdiction over, a certain part of the greater metro area. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely possible that the crime may be moving elsewhere, that maybe crime might be spiking in some of the outlying areas, but not necessarily within the city. The Bissonnette example is a great one, and I've done some reporting on that as well. The measures that they've implemented there to try to kind of move the prostitution activity and trafficking activity elsewhere, and pose those same questions to city leaders and HPD. But it stands to reason that and prostitution. What's the cliche that it's the oldest profession known to humanity. So I mean, it stands to reason. Okay, you block off the Bissonnette tract where this has historically happened. That doesn't mean that people are going to stop being prostitutes and johns. It just means that they can't do it right there.
You brought up HPD and what they're going through right now with the suspended cases scandal. And as a listener, I'm sure people are like, wait, hold on. Do we really trust these numbers? Because HPD provided these numbers to the DPS, right?
Yep.
And they're reported by local agencies, by the way. Every local agency does this. Should we trust these numbers in light of what's happening right now and what's happened at HPD?
Well, it's a very fair question. And I would say that, it all needs to be taken with a grain of salt at this point. Again, you look at all the other cities, Dallas, Austin, San Antonio, El Paso, where crime is down there too. You could say, yeah, maybe crime is legitimately down in all these places across the state. But it also begs the question, well, hang on, is there something going on here with the way they're reporting these crimes or the way they're calculating all these things? It definitely helps to have a healthy dose of skepticism. And when you look at stuff like this, you always have to try to put it in context. For example, okay, 61 homicides. You can look at that and say, oh man, compared to previous years, that's pretty good. That's still 61 people being killed.
Yeah.
Which one could argue that's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I think it's fair to put all that in context when we think about crime. I mean, it's a big city. In all the big cities, it's going to happen. There's going to be risks, and there's going to be areas where it happens more so than others. But I also don't know if it does a lot of good to sort of go around thinking that, if you step outside, you're going to be a victim of a crime.
All right. Finally, Adam, overall, what should listeners take away from this reporting and this data?
I think it's important to kind of have a broad view of crime and this issue. And, everything needs to be taken into context. So, I mean, I think it's an encouraging sign, but I wouldn't consider this 100% irrefutable fact. These are the numbers that are out right now. It shows a positive trend. The crime is going downward. But with a lot of things in life, it should be taken with some skepticism and put into context, and know that there are very few absolutes in this world.
Adam, thank you so much for joining us, and we will talk to you hopefully on another episode.
Thank you for having me. It's been fun.
That was Adam Zuvanich. You can find all of his reporting with the link in our show notes. Before we go, if you're still listening, then you must really love this show. So help us grow it by telling 3 people about it. Send them a link to CityCast Houston and tell them they should subscribe. Thank you so much. That will do it for today. Thank you for listening, and I hope you learned something new. Do one more take.